Dragon Age the Veilguard's clumsy, preachy political messaging does more harm than good. I had to say something about this because there's news about this game. The best way to convince someone of your own point of view is generally not to bash them over the head with a cudgel, though that seems to be the preferred approach in modern political discourse and, alas, in entertainment. The culture being what it is has lost all sense of subtlety. In far too many films, TV shows, and video games, we see a heavy-handed, top-down approach to the issues of the day. It's a real shame that the developers at BioWare decided to go this route in Dragon Age the Veilguard. Yeah, typically what you want to do is ask somebody a question if you want to change their mind about something. So this, of course, is about the Veilguard and their they-them preachiness. So what you would do is if somebody was using the wrong pronouns, you might say to them, hey, why don't you use the correct pronouns? Or what do you think about neopronouns or something like that? I've already posted my impressions piece about the game, which I've been pleasantly surprised with so far. I was worried going in, but Veilguard has been a lot more fun and a lot more engaging than I expected. Even if I'm still annoyed with its overly saturated, overly cartoonish art style, among other things. I mean, the saturation is color, so this doesn't really look that saturated to me. And is it cartoonish? I don't really see that it's all that cartoonish. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I'm not playing the game. This is just a still image, so who knows. In my piece, I noted that so far at least, I hadn't encountered anything overtly preachy or that one might describe as garishly political or overly woke. The game is diverse and gives you options to play as male, female, or trans, but in my time with it, this felt mostly like giving players more choice and freedom, and I'm all for that, especially in an RPG where choice and freedom are largely the point. Other big games in recent years have done the same thing, okay? And they shouldn't be like encouraging this trans stuff. That's ridiculous, because this is just another way of indoctrinating children or people who are impressionable into the trans ideology. And then they're getting their bodies hacked up and going, oh crap, what did I do? And that's bad news for those people. You can't go back. Once it's done, it's done. Now, if you enjoy my content, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can find me over on Rumble and Twitter, and let's get back to the article. But I had not yet arrived at a certain section of the game that has now been making the rounds on social media, being roundly and rightfully mocked. Unfortunately, the scene in question will play directly into the narrative that this game is woke, feeding a cycle of online discourse that goes nowhere but earns lots of clicks. It will undoubtedly turn many gamers off entirely, not necessarily because they're unsympathetic to trans rights, but because they're tired of being preached at. Well, I'm both. I'm tired of being preached at, and I'm not sympathetic to trans. You already have all the rights. What rights do you need? Oh, you need to invade women's spaces? Okay, yeah, I understand that right. I understand why you want that right. Yep. In the scene in question below, one character misgenders another. To atone for this sin, she does a set of push-ups and then lectures the other characters on how to properly apologize. The term non-binary is thrown around despite this being a word that very few people had ever heard of when Dragon Age Inquisition came out a decade ago, let alone in a fantasy setting divorced entirely from the real world. Yeah, you want to play a cool medieval fantasy game and they're going to be throwing around like non-binary stuff, it's going to probably break your immersion. Now, if you're playing a cool, well, maybe not cool game, but a medieval fantasy game, and that's like a big deal in the game where it's all about like, oh, we have trans people and non-binary and this and that and all the things, then that's a different story. I mean, that's if it's like built into the setting as a major part of the setting. Okay, that's probably not going to be a very fun game, but you can play that game. This is immersion, just like I just said, this is immersion breaking. Frankly, it's written so poorly that it comes across as self-parody. The character's performative apology is shallow and empty, as all performative apologies are. In my experience, a simple and genuine sorry is better than making a big show of it and then bragging about how much better your apology is. The whole scene feels freshly cut from some conversation in an undergrad gender studies class in the year 2024. The kind of conversation said undergrads will someday look back on and cringe over. Here's the scene. I don't think... Oh, here is the scene. I have access to the scene. What do you know? Let's go ahead and watch it here.
Pounding that snake's nose. She's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties. I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah. They're still holding it. Sorry.
what are you doing?
Pulling a Bharv.
Oh, okay. A Bharv?
Tradition in the Lords of Fortune from one of our old members, Bharv. Good guy, but like most of us, his plans went sideways a lot. Bad blood among your crew's not good for morale, but there's not always time for big drawn-out apologies. So when one of us screws up and we know we've screwed up, we do a quick 10 to put it right. Pulling a Bharv.
Just what you want to do.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, really, how is this supposed to make up for anything? I would be insulted by this. It's like, you think that you can make up for insulting me by doing 10 push-ups? That's not going to, especially if you're some sort of highly trained warrior, you probably do hundreds of push-ups. The animation in here is garbage. I mean, it's cutscene animation, so it's not going to be the best typically, but still it could be a lot better than it is.
I'm glad the Lords of Fortune have Tarsh's back.
Oh, Tarsh isn't the first non-binary member of the Lords.
Really?
It was a little before your time, but Horlicks was one of ours. Huh. Bastard looked better than I did in a...
Was it the first? You know, that wasn't. It was a little before your time, but you know, there was this other guy who was non-binary. Really, if this is such a part of intelligent biological organisms, why isn't it like going way back into history? Gods have existed for millennia, right? That's how this works in medieval fantasy. The gods typically have been around for a long time. So why haven't we seen like non-binary ones stretching way back into the history of the gods? When they first came to be, why wasn't at least one of them non-binary or trans or something?
Dress or pants. And out of them too.
And furthermore, why do gods even have gender? What does it matter? They can just mate any way they want to.
Any reason you can't just apologize?
Sometimes people say, oops, sorry, and hope that fixes it. But they just want to get the whole thing over with. Trust me, I know. But pulling a Bharv, you sweat a little. Makes you think about it a little more. Shows the other person you mean it.
What if they mean it when they say they're sorry, though?
And that's the other reason. Some people mess up and get all dramatic. They make it about them. Oh, you know, I didn't mean it right. I'd never do that on purpose.
I would, and I'd be proud of it, and I think everybody else should too.
They feel so bad about it that it's on everyone else to smooth it over and make them feel better.
Oh, okay, yes, some people might do that.
Pulling a Bharv puts it on the person who screwed up. They made the mess, they fix it, done.
Yeah, I won't be watching that again. Pretty ridiculous. The thing is look, you might be thinking, oh, you're a jerk. How come you're misgendering somebody on purpose and you'd be proud of it? Stop messing with the language. If we, by natural happenstance, start using a third gender, then fine. Although I don't know who that would apply to because there's only two genders. But don't force it. Don't force me to play your games. Again, my problem with this scene is not the inclusion of trans or non-binary characters in Dragon Age. It should be. But with the ham-fisted way this issue is framed. I recently wrote a review of The Bright Sword and noted in that review that he includes a trans character as one of the Knights of the Round Table. The difference in approach is worth noting here. In the book, the term trans is never used since it would not have been around in the Arthurian era. Why not? Why wouldn't it be? It should be, right? If this is the thing that human beings are, then it should have been around a long time ago. Idiots. It should be similarly, right, to how non-binary would not be a word in Dragon Age. Instead, the character is born as one of two twins. At birth, she is a girl and her twin is a boy, but she chafes at all things girly and the confines and restrictions placed upon her and wants nothing more than to train with a sword and become a knight. There were female knights in medieval Europe. They were the exception, but there were some. So, F you. That has nothing to do with being trans or non-binary. The hell? When I was training in martial arts, I trained with a lot of women. None of those women were like, I'm gay. None of them were like, I'm trans, I'm bi, I'm this, nothing. They were all women. They were all very much into men. One of the reasons they liked doing martial arts because there was a lot of men around. She eventually encounters a fairy with whom she makes a magical bargain. The fairy takes her to a lake and instructs her to swim down below where she meets another fairy. The second fairy, okay, this is just a stupid book. I don't even care. And she's going to go, this works because it is never preachy. It doesn't awkwardly adopt the terms of modern day gender politics. Instead, Grossman tells the kind of story anyone can relate to with beautifully written prose and never comes off as politically driven, but rather part of the grander, timeless tale. Many people are born feeling as though they don't belong for one reason or another. This character's story, he calls himself Denaden. She calls herself Denaden. I'm assuming she's talking about a girl, right? So that would be she. Why are you misgendering her? And when the hero of the book encounters her, it's Sir Denaden. Yeah. So this is the trans person who thinks that she is a he, and no, it's a her. Is one just about anyone can empathize with and feels like part of an old fable rather than a conversation you might hear at the campus coffee shop. It doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. In other words, there is no performative apology after someone misgenders the knight. No cloying lecture inserted as some kind of message to readers. It's subtle and gracefully handled, and in my opinion, a much more effective way of creating sympathy towards trans people than Dragon Age's clumsy approach. Yeah, so we have, I'm not going to go through the rest of this article. There's not much more to it. I'll leave a link to it if you want to read this. But yeah, the whole point is Dragon Age has a clumsy scene in it. That's the real point. But why am I making this video? I just did a video about video games and brought up this scene a few weeks ago. Probably not even 2 weeks ago, honestly, a week and a half ago, something like that. Because we have new news about Dragon Age. Weeks after EA said Dragon Age the Veilguard did not resonate with a broad enough audience, BioWare's RPG is coming to PlayStation Plus as a free monthly game. Well, you know, get woke, go broke. That's how it works. BioWare had to lay off a whole division or something like that. A lot of people in this animation industry are hurting right now because of the woke nonsense. Because of this damn woke nonsense. My finger's on the pulse of this industry because, you know, I teach animation. I went to school to be an animator. I've worked in the animation industry. And this pisses me off to no end. We're seeing animators out of work because they can't write a story that isn't woke in Hollywood. They can't write a story that isn't woke in video games anymore. Animation is hard to make. Video games are hard to make. They're expensive. So the first thing to get cut is animation. Video games, obviously, they don't want to cut the video games, but they're going to go with the tried and true video games. They're not going to try these new experimental games. So they're going to be cutting back on a lot of things. It's not even been 4 full months since Dragon Age the Veilguard released, but the RPG is already heading to PlayStation Plus as one of 3 monthly games that subscribers will be able to claim and keep next month. Idiots. If the game isn't that woke, like the other article said, the game isn't really that woke, but still, all we saw of it was this one cutscene where you're pulling a Bharv, which is super cringy. If somebody came to me and said, oh, you misgendered me, I want you to do 10 push-ups to make up for it. And I'd be like, up yours. I'll give you a swift kick in the ass to make up for it. How does that sound? Well, I don't play in your games. I use the language as it was intended. There's none of these neo-pronouns. They don't exist. This is true. They don't exist, even though people claim they do. They don't exist. Okay, so all the words that you hear out there that are neo-pronouns, they're all a figment of your imagination. Announced in a post on the PlayStation blog today, Dragon Age the Veilguard will be available to claim from March 4. Okay, so that's just passed for PS Plus subscribers, no matter what tier they're paying for. After claiming it, you'll be able to download and play the RPG at any time as long as you're still subscribed. It's not like the library of games available in PS Plus Extra members, where titles occasionally disappear from whence they came. Yeah, well, going online with your PlayStation has just been, a lot of people have complaints about that because it's garbage. They screw you over so much. Like my account, I can't get into my account because they don't acknowledge my password. They don't acknowledge my email address. I'm like, well, I set it up with this email address. Why aren't you sending me a password reset? I know what my password is. I have it written down. I didn't change it, so that's my password. You changed it, and now I can't access my games. Thanks, PlayStation. Way to go. Earlier this month, in an earnings call, EA CEO Andrew Wilson stated that despite the Veilguard's high-quality launch and being well-reviewed by critics and those who played, the RPG ultimately did not resonate with a broad enough audience in this highly competitive market. In the same call, EA's chief financial officer, Stuart Canfield, stated that the game underperformed. Well, maybe fix the animation, because that animation in the cutscene was terrible. And then, I don't know, make sure the story is awesome, because that's what people play games for, is good action, good story. People do not play games for good graphics. That's really not what they play for. You know how I know this? Because I was playing games a long time ago on the original Nintendo. 2D side scrolls, 8-bit. I played on a Commodore 64. Again, you know, these things were old school. I played all these old school games. They were 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and I loved them. I would go back and play a lot of those games again. Some of those games are really, really fun, really amazing games. Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Quest 2, Dragon Quest 3. Fun games. If you like turn-based role-playing games, those were all low quality as far as graphics were concerned. So how is it that I can sit down and play that game? And in fact, I played Dragon Quest V in 2016. So Dragon Quest V was still low bit quality, 16 or 32 bit, something like that. So probably 32 bit, but still low bit quality. So the graphics were not great. Dragon Quest V is considered the best of all of them. Why? Why would it be considered the best of all of them when it has low graphics? When we can play these newer games, we can play Dragon Quest Builders with amazing graphics. The cutscenes, the animation is phenomenal. Huh. Why would they play it? Why would people think that Dragon Quest V was the best one out of all the Dragon Quest Dragon Warrior games? It's called story, stupid. It's really not difficult to figure this out. Make a good story. People like that. Wow, what do you know? Make a compelling story. Make it good action. If a game is... I like hack and slash. That's my favorite thing to play. It has to have good responsive action. Has to have tight action. If it doesn't have good enough action, like I don't like God of War. God of War, you think, what? You don't like God of War? What are you, crazy? Look, God of War is a fun game. You can get into the story and it can be really fun. I've played 2 of them. The first one I played, and that one was all right. It wasn't bad. I liked the story, but the thing that I didn't like about it was the action was not quite where I needed it to be engaging for me. The feedback in the controller was not good enough there. And that's what I really look for, is that real impact with the controller as I'm launching myself at an enemy. That's what I prefer. Good games for that. The Witcher is pretty good for that, for example. That's why I prefer The Witcher over a lot of these other games. Which, I mean, I think we can all agree that The Witcher is a pretty good game. Whether you like it or not, it's a pretty good game. It's pretty immersive and pretty good story. So, anyway, I mean, like I said before, we'll go work. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you in the next video.